Hey everyone, it's the friggin' playoffs. Woohoo! We made it. We're here. It's I got the Stanley Cup behind me as is customary for the podcast during the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Did you steal it?
Did I what?
Did you steal it?
No. This is my own Stanley Cup that I own. That is drunk from once a year at the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Yes, but here we are, and
I think we've made the playoffs every year.
We make the playoffs all the time.
Yeah, every year we've gone to the playoffs.
The hockey writers always make the playoffs.
Yeah, every year.
Yeah. I
made it to the finals for 36 consecutive years.
Yeah, I've been there many times. Russ has been there many times. I mean,
I think Red Fisher might have done 50 in a row. So
it's fun to get to win the Stanley Cup every year. It's fun to get to win the Stanley Cup, to be there when the Stanley Cup is won every year. That's a lot of fun. I'm always so jealous of the people when I see them walking into the crowd, walking into the stadium now. I'm just like, when they're in their uniforms, when their team could win a Stanley Cup that night, I just think to myself, man, how many hockey fans don't get the chance to do that? To walk into the stadium with their team with the Stanley Cup on the line. And, and then when they don't win, in that night, that walk out is just brutal too. Watching that, but we got a lot to get to. Russ, what's going on with you?
All right, so I'm going to show off the problem with the Major League Baseball. So this one is from late 80s. This is a Chubb Feeney when he was National League President ball. You can see it's rubbed up with the Mississippi mud that is gotten from South Jersey, that in the Delaware River. It's a whole thing, right? Then this is the one that they used in the Olympics, the Mizuno one that actually is pre-treated, and it is. Like, I felt it. It's got like a tackiness to it. So, last year, in 2018, Major League Baseball bought Rawlings. And you would think that that's kind of weird that they would buy the company that makes balls for their sport, but they did. And last year, they had two different balls. Now, they didn't tell the players or anybody during the year, but players figured out something was going on. So what ended up happening was they said because of COVID, they couldn't keep up with the orders, so they used another ball that they had sort of just laying around and to fill the orders. So last year there were two balls. So now we go into this season and there's no spider tack and there's maybe two balls again floating around baseball, and everybody's getting beaned. Like the Mets have been beaned over 20 times in 23 games, which is insane. Some guys hit in the head, some guys hit in the face. And this is because not necessarily pitchers are being meaner, but it's because the inside fastball they don't have control of like they did before. And it's not all pitchers, but it's some pitchers. So now Major League Baseball is testing a tackier type baseball in the minor leagues. And, my thing is, how can you go through with a whole season and have all of this problem with beaning players and knowing you may have a solution already in the minors and having all these baseballs? Like, Kev, I don't even think they could solve it this year just based on the demand of baseballs.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly an issue. Too many people are talking about it. And, as you mentioned, pitchers would certainly know when there's a different feel because the feel is everything to them. So, they're going to have to get this ironed out. This is not the first time we've ever had problems with baseballs because it's hard to maintain a level of consistency, because your suppliers change and all that kind of stuff. So, I've read stories that say, even though it sounds like, well, yeah, just use the same formula, but it doesn't work that way because people go out of business and then you buy from certain, so there are some issues with it, but they can do a better job than they have done with this.
And the one byproduct is the Mississippi mud people may be out of luck. Like if these pre-treated balls work, they're never going to use Mississippi mud anymore after
no. Although wouldn't you use it just for tradition?
Maybe you figure it out.
I don't know. I like the idea that they rub them up with mud.
I wanted to bring up one thing baseball related before we start, Russ, because I found it. Okay, we know that pitching has changed in Major League Baseball, where complete games are, few and far between. We know that the Mets have only had one no-hitter in their history, and that was Johan Santana blowing out his arm. Was that the last starter? He was pretty much done.
Yeah, a couple more after that.
Okay. So over the weekend, the Mets have a no-hitter, a collective no-hitter, 5 pitchers, and it's being celebrated like an actual no-hitter, like a 1-pitcher, 9-inning no-hitter. And I know
let me guess, that bothers you.
Yeah, because it's not a goddamn no-hitter. It's not. I mean, for an organization that's only had 1 no-hitter in their history, they have to celebrate that. But I remember the Yankees getting no-hit, I think it was by the White Sox, and it was like 4 pitchers. It was like, oh, that's great, but it wasn't celebrated as a no-hitter. It's not. It's
there is something to be said, Kev.
I don't think you have to count it, but if you want to celebrate it, who the hell cares?
Right. There you go.
Like other than Mike Agello, do you think people how many people would raise their voices to that level that Mike did over somebody else celebrating something?
Mike's an exact guy. Mike's an exact guy. It's got to be exactly right. Like that.
Well, I get it. I mean,
I respect the exacting thing. That's something.
Well, because there have been guys that have thrown 10-inning no-hitters on their own, right? That's the difference.
Yeah, Harvey Haddix is rolling over in his grave right now.
But I get that your distinction, but why would you be angry over it?
Right.
That's the thing that I don't understand. It's not an official no-hitter. It's got to be one guy. It's got to go 9 innings. But, I wouldn't bring it up because I'm angry over it.
They're taking pictures. It's like, oh my God, here's the 5 guys and they're all like hugging each other. I'm like, so what? Anyway, okay.
Oh,
All right, let's go. It's May 2nd,
Monday
right?
Mad by Mike.
Yeah, it's
By the way,
it's so unbelievable though that what gets him so worked up over those things. So
by the way, my wife and I went 0-5 yesterday in our pickleball tournament.
Okay.
0-5.
Did you lose to 13-year-olds though, or 12-year-olds?
And we weren't supposed to play them, Kevin, but we did. We weren't supposed to play them, but they I guess there were no other teams in their bracket, so they threw them into our bracket because there are no other kids that are 11 and 14 years old. And at the end of the day, we decided that we were watching. It'll be fun to tell our kids. Our kids will be able to tell their kids that they saw the Olympic champions beat up on their grandparents years ago. Because I think these little they're pickleball fiends. I mean, they're really good. I mean, for their age, that's crazy. 11 years. You should be able to beat, even at 50 years old. I should be able to beat an 11-year-old at any sport I play. I really feel that. I should be able to go out there and just anything I do, I should be able to beat. What it's like to play against little children when you're coaching.
Kids at golf, like Tiger Woods.
I know, but when you're coaching, the superstars, like I'm saying, these kids might be future Olympians. The fact that they are so good, it's just.
Or maybe they're just kids in shape, and you don't want to admit that you're not in shape.
Well, but I mean, I get it. I mean, it's the challenge of facing younger people and everything. I'm not
saying I would beat them. I know what it. Listen, I remember when you're a little kid, and you could. I remember just doing this in any sport, but especially paddleball because I play with my dad. When you're a little kid and you're playing with older people, it is like a badge of honor to beat them into the ground. It is because I kind of remember there would be older guys looking at me and my dad and be like, "Your kid's too young to do this." And then if you beat them, you'd feel really good about it. I think that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be bothered by playing them. I would just want to try to rise up and do, the best you could against them.
Yeah, and they're funny, and their parents are so nice. And they have so warming up at the net and pickleball. The way you warm up is you each get on each side of the net. So I'm next to the 11-year-old girl next to me, hitting over to her friend, who's a 14-year-old boy, and I'm hitting over to my wife across. And we're hitting back and forth like this, right? And I'm turned to them and says, "Hey guys, what do you think of the 1900s?" Huh? And I was saying stuff like this to try to get inside their heads.
You should have talked about Taylor Swift. That may have done something.
They were just funny. We got the first year. We were winning. We were winning 1-0. I'll throw that out there. We were winning 1-0.
Taylor Swift on every other show. Maybe tell the kids Taylor Swift, or at least the keyboard player, and maybe that would distract them. Maybe.
Wow, Russ. Wow.
I'm strategizing how to beat 11-year-olds now. This is
no. It's really tough. As a kid, I remember when we had Captain EO, you guys all know, and I. Were at a great street hockey team in 6th grade. This is where Eric and I met, and our street hockey teams were amazing. And we played against we were I don't know, how old are you in 6th grade? 14 years old, maybe. So
no,
younger,
no,
10.
No, you're 12. You're 11.
12, right? Okay, so 12. All right, 12 years old. And my cousin had a bunch of like, drunken friends. They played that. They went to Grateful Dead concerts and played street hockey too. And we took them on. We played them in the church in a big challenge, like us versus the college kids. We called it.
Must have been a high time.
Called it the college kids, and we won. And it was like the most incredible feeling ever. Like we won because when we were like, and we had a lot of good like ice hockey players like that played on our street hockey team, and we won. And that was the age when I realized that But then when I got to college, I realized, the guys that were like 3 or 4 years younger than me could beat me if they were good. But when you talk about people that are 40 years younger than you, it just becomes a different world. So anyway, moving on. Let's go. way too much time on this. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It is Monday, May 2nd, 2022.
I'm Michael Agello, and if you want an insight into why I'm always pissed off, today is the 55th anniversary of the Maple Leafs winning their last Stanley Cup.
Yes.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sports Outlet.
I'm Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz, and I actually have a stat that I think Mike will like.
Oh, there you go.
Very good. And I'm Eklund, and I always consider myself Maple Leaf curse because I was born 9 months after today. So I believe that I was conceived on the day that the Maple Leafs won their last Stanley Cup.
You are Maple Leaf curse because you always pick them, and they always
my existence. I don't always pick them. I don't always pick them at all. All right. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday. Kevin, what do you got?
This is the stat that was personally created for Mike. They faced the defending Stanley Cup champion. I'm talking about the Maple Leafs 17 times. Okay, and they've lost, only won 3 of those series in the playoffs. But the 3 times they won the series, they won the cup.
Okay,
there you go. All right, so there you have it.
So
we're gonna talk predictions today. We're gonna talk all kinds of crazy things. We got my matchup stats for the 4 games for tonight. We're also gonna, there's some changes going on in the hockey world. We'll get to maybe at the end. Like Winnipeg Jets have apparently relieved their coaches. We could see other coaches firings today. But that's still I don't think it's official yet, so it's out there. But that's the rumor.
And Cheveldayoff was extended for 3 years.
Okay, so that is official.
Yeah.
But we are going to get into the predictions, and we're going to start. I think we should start with Toronto and Tampa because it's there. It has to be talked about. It has to be talked about. So I'm going to start off with three quick predictions they're totally subjective. That'll be fun for everybody to enjoy. First off is what I'd always do with my son, where I have him predict the winner based on who would win versus the mascots. And today he said officially that his line was, "We all know that lightning is the mortal enemy of trees," and that there's no question that the Lightning should take down the Maple Leafs with no problem during that. But now let's go to the matchups of these two teams, and we'll do the matchups real fast. And the matchups are 2. They each won 2 games. They didn't play each other last year at all. They've each won twice this year, each kind of handling each other in April. The Leafs won 6-2, and then the Lightning won 8-1. And then in the early season, they each split in Toronto too. And my thing's pointing this way. Sorry about that. They each split in Toronto as well. And the Maple Leafs won in regulation. The Maple Leafs won in overtime. Their one game in a great performance by Campbell, 2-1 game. And then I watched a little bit of that game this morning. So the matchups would favor the Lightning as well a little bit. And my final thing that I'd like to do is the power play penalty kill thing, because this is another way you can always, if you want to go find out what's going to happen in the playoffs, if you look at teams' power plays and teams' penalty kills, you can tell. Here's where Toronto has the advantage. Toronto is we obviously know they're first in the power play in the NHL as far as power play percentage goes, and they're 8th in penalty kill. Tampa's 8th in power play and 10th in penalty kill. So for what it's worth, there's the Maple Leafs advantage. Okay, so Mike, we might as well go to you. Why don't we start with you? Go for it. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I'm breaking down this series position by position. Tampa Bay, except for special teams, wins every position. Goaltending, Vasilevsky is more experienced, has won 2 cups, is one of the best goalies in the league. Campbell lately has played well, but I don't know whether he's the October or November Campbell or just a guy who, he had a couple good games at the end of the year. Defensively, I think, Toronto's improved. Tampa Bay is much better with their experience with McDonough. The only thing is Russ has said McDonough is playing less than 100%, and that might affect his ice time. Forward-wise, I think the Leafs are deep. I think Tampa is deeper, and the third line that is pretty much gone from last year, Goudreau, Coleman, Gord, they've replaced with Nick Paul and Belmar and Perry and Hagel. So I don't know if they're as good third line as they were last year, but the guys that they have up top, Killorn, Palat, Kucherov, the gang, you can depend on them. It's the big question in the series is whether the Leafs core players can produce. And Marner and Matthews were basically shut out the last 5 games against Montreal last year. Tavares got hurt. Nylander stepped up. They need all 4 of those guys to be hitting on all 8 cylinders. And if they do that, they have a chance to win this series. But there's a lot of big question marks there. That's why I predict Tampa in 6. And I know that some of my readers and people who listen to our podcast are pissed off at me. I don't care. I'm calling this not on fandom. I'm calling it in terms of a logical, reasoned analysis of the series. I hope Toronto wins, but I don't think they're going to.
I don't think there's any reason to be upset with you for picking Tampa in this series. I mean,
well, people were. I'm just telling
you. I think when I looked around today, I tried to get a general feel. I think Tampa's the resounding favorite among insiders out there.
Home ice advantage is meaningless, even though the fans are in the stands. And record during the regular season for all these series is absolutely freaking meaningless. This is a new season, new challenges. Like if we talk about Minnesota, St. Louis, I don't care if St. Louis is 9-0-1 in the last 10 games. It doesn't matter. This is new. So Toronto, I think Tampa will win in 6, but it's not impossible for Toronto to win.
All right, Kevin.
I'll be much shorter on for future answers.
For sure, that's your game. I get it. That's your series.
Yeah. I pretty much agree with everything Mike said. I think Toronto's a much better team this year than they were a year ago. And I really like the Giordano acquisition. I think that changes them a little bit. And I have watched Tampa Bay pretty closely, and for the final month of the season, they were not very good. But right toward the very end, as they are apt to do, they suddenly flipped the switch and they said, "Okay, we got to get ready," and they started to play better. They're not as deep as they were last season. I think they know that, and they're not as deep as they were in their first year as well. But there's still enough there, and ultimately, if we still believe goaltending is key, they've got Vasilevsky, and he's proven, it feels like he just had a very ordinary season. But when you look at his numbers, he was still one of the better goalies in the league. So I'm taking Toronto as well. I think they're kind of on a mission.
You're taking Tampa as well?
Tampa. What did I say?
You said Toronto.
Yeah. Oh, I said, no, I'm taking definitely taking Tampa. And I think they're kind of on that quest to win 3 in a row.
They do feel like it. Russ?
Well, I think Toronto has more secondary scoring than they did a year ago. I think their defense is better and their penalty kills a little better. Goaltending, sure. I mean, we could always poke holes in it. But I also think Vasilevsky facing more shots, having to make more saves, playing a lot of games could be a factor. If you're going to beat a team like Tampa, you're going to beat them in the first round. Once they start getting, on a roll, that's when they're going to be a problem. So I'm going to go Leafs in 7 and risk my stellar reputation on it.
Very nice. I like it. I like that I don't have to be the only person to talk reason here, Russ. Thank you very much. All right, so I decided not to do predictions on this one, but instead decided to travel to the future.
Come on, cop out.
No, it's not a cop out. I traveled to the future. I remember I own a crystal puck that can take me anywhere in time that I want to go. So I decided that I would go to the future, and so I traveled to May 13th, which is next Friday, and wrote. I'm going to give you the quick review of what happened in the series. Basically,
can I ask one thing? If you're going into the future, could you give me the Powerball numbers for May the 10th?
I got it. I'll bring them to you later. Yeah, I already wrote it down. All right, so here we go. Game 1. We knew the series would have its share of goals. Vasilevsky, is a big game goalie, like we talked about. Reminds me, he can break, he can bend, like you said, Russ. He does tend to. Remember, he gave up a lot of goals against Florida last year in the playoffs, but still managed to win games. So in game 1, he had been very much like he was in the past. And this started off with Stamkos, who's having like a Gretzky like run right now, with a hat trick in game one. Remember that was the game one, and a 5-4 Tampa win in Toronto tonight. That would have been tonight, but I'm talking about, of course, 9 days ago. Game two, the Leaf game two explosion comes about. Matthews counters with his own hat trick, ties the series up 6-4. You can read about the more details on my blog, but I'm just going to do quickly through this. But so back in Tampa, this game three was where Tampa looked a little overconfident to me. They had won, they split, they thought they're going to take this thing. The Leafs jump out to a 3-0 first period lead, eventually winning the game, kind of going away 5-1. Game four was the best game of the series. Tampa responded with their own lead, and it really gets intense. They had a 3-0 lead. They took a lot of bad penalties in the second period. Toronto battles back. It ends up with Marner winning in overtime in game four, and that actually ends up with the Leafs having a 3-1 lead. They go back to Toronto.
Now, at this point, are you going to text Mike?
Yes, of course. I'd like to make the congratulations, Mike. Things are going great. Back in Toronto, with the chance to put things.
There'll be a 2-word response.
So back in Toronto with the Leafs having a chance to put it away. Of course, Mike, you know what happens. They lose the game in game five. Having to put it away. They lose 2-0. Really 1-0 game in an overtime. This is where Tampa shows its ability to do this. Tampa can play these 1-0 games when they have to. When the pressure's on, they can play another style altogether. Game six, 0-0 going into the third, late. Then of course, Austin Matthews gets a goal midway through the third period. The game is tied up with the goalie out by Tampa. The goal looks like it should be reviewed. The goal is allowed to go, but then Marner in overtime takes advantage of a big hit by Austin Matthews on Victor Hedman, and the Leafs win the series in 6.
That's hilarious.
That's what's going to happen.
Hit by Austin Matthews on Victor Hedman. I have a better chance of getting a date with Jessica Chastain.
Matthews is going to play a more physical game.
He may be more physical, but he's not going to hit.
And in that situation there, with the series on the line, Matthews, they're going to shock the world, winning game 6, 2-1 in overtime, and that's the series. So there you have it. And that's the only time traveling series I'm going to do today. But I just thought when it was such a good series, I thought I would tell you guys exactly what happened. So now you don't have to watch it. I probably just said spoiler alert. All right, moving on. Such a great response from you guys. I was expecting more fun, but that's okay. Boston, Carolina. I'm trying here, guys. I'm trying not to just talk about hockey sometimes. Boston, Carolina. The matchup on this, as you guys know, is ridiculous, right? Carolina has dominated this year. They've outscored Boston 16-1 in the 3 games they played each other. This is not even close that way.
Again, can I just say, and I know that you got all these regular season.
I know you think they're meaningless.
They're absolutely freaking.
But they're not. And every year, again, I'm going to challenge you to beat the matchups predictions, Mike. You're going to see if you can beat them because I don't think you can. All right. Next up comes, as far as power plays and penalty killing goes, Carolina, 13th best power play, number 1 on the penalty kill. Carolina is, which is really interesting. Boston, 15th best power play, 9th on the penalty kill. So Carolina has that as well. So Carolina has the matchup and the X factor. When it comes to actually mascots, my son pointed out that in Florida, which has to deal with a lot of hurricanes, of course, there's a thriving brown bear population that survives all these hurricanes, no problem. So we're going with the Bruins as far as mascots go. And from there, we'll go to Kevin. Kevin, thoughts on Boston, Carolina?
Well, I mean, I think there's always one series that there's potential for an upset, and I feel like it's this one. And all season long, I think there's been a question about whether Carolina was for real. I'm not really sure why that is. Yeah. But I like their defense. I did like their goaltending. He was playing very well, but right now he's not playing. So we'll have to see how that goes. So I think there's potential here, but I still think Carolina's going to hang on because I have the sense that Freddie Anderson will be back. And also, I think their defense just doesn't get enough credit. It's hard to play against. They're always on you. And they've got enough scoring up front. And I think the Bruins, even though I like their culture of playing strong defense in the playoffs, which is fully ingrained. Marchand and Bergeron are getting a little long in the tooth, so I'm not sure they're the same as hungry as they once were when they were younger.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So you're going Carolina in this one, I guess.
I am Carolina.
Okay. Russ.
Yeah. I don't understand why Antti Raanta is starting the first game, considering this is his first playoff start.
Ever.
So I think it's a very first ever playoff start. So basically coming into this game, him and Kochetkov have the same amount of playoff starts. So to me, it's not like, well, they're choosing the more experienced guy in the playoffs, because neither of them have NHL playoff experience, right? But like Kevin said, they have the better defense, and they do tend to rally. And while this Bruins team is very good, I just think Carolina over the long haul will get Anderson back, and that probably will make a difference. I'm going to go Canes in 7, but I don't love the starting goaltending selection right now.
Yeah. Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I had the same prediction, Canes in 7, and the reason that I did is because, I mean, normally if the Canes were completely healthy with Anderson in there, even though Anderson struggled in the playoffs in recent years, and especially against the Bruins a few years back, 2 years in a row, I think Carolina is really a solid team throughout. But the fact that they're going with, and I would have made the same decision that Rod Brindamore made going with Raanta, not because, they both have the same playoff experience, which is none, but Ranta's been in the league for a number of years. So I think it's, and if Anderson is not available, then you can go to Kochetkov in future games. The Bruins, Lindholm's coming off an injury. Pasternak is not 100%. And I still don't know. I heard that they're going with Ullmark in game 1, so they're not going with Swayman. So they're going to do the same thing that Carolina is, which is if Ullmark drops the ball, they'll go to the younger goalie. I think Carolina is the better team. I think they're healthier, except for the goaltending. That's why I'll go with Canes in 7.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement here a little bit. I'm in 6, Canes in 6, but I think that I do think that the interesting thing about this is Raanta is, while I agree with you, Russ, that I feel like the other goalie would be the better choice, but I think that this is a very Rod Brindamore thing to do. Like, Brindamore's not going to do anything that takes that team, that tears the team apart. Like, Ranta's been there all year. Ranta's been a part of it. He's going to go with that first. Not saying he won't make a change, because he will. He's shown they'll make a change. But as far as doing something to screw with the team's own, making the team doubt themselves, he's going to go with the team first.
I will say it like this, Ek. You can't ask the analytics department to help you with this decision, because there are no analytics that would prove one goalie or the other, because neither of them have done it.
No, but in that locker room, one goalie has been there the whole year.
Okay.
And I think I think Brindamore is that kind of a coach, that says, okay, he's our guy, because Brindamore's been a player. He knows, you don't screw around with that. Now, if he loses or has a bad game, they can easily switch. I just think Carolina is being underrated so much here around the league, and they always are anyway, but now losing their goalie even more so. I think their great goaltending they got this year was more a result of their defense than there was their goalie. I really felt that with Anderson, even though he played well.
It's always a factor.
I just got another cool fact in the email here. It doesn't mean anything, but it's fun. The last team to win a Stanley Cup to win a Stanley Cup without a goalie they drafted was the 2006-07 Anaheim Ducks with Giguère. So since then, only teams have drafted their goalie.
And you know who drafted Giguère?
So
the Hartford Whalers.
Hartford Whalers.
Whalers drafted Giguère, right? Wow, interesting. All right, I like that one. All right, so let's go to the LA Kings and Edmonton Oilers then. So Edmonton won 3 of the 4 this year, for what it's worth. Edmonton gets the matchup win. The Kings, the power play and penalty kill is fascinating in this one. The Kings' power play is 27th in the NHL. Their penalty kill is 22nd in the NHL. The Oilers are that usually don't see teams in the mid-20s make the playoffs. That's kind of crazy. That's not normal at all, right? The Oilers are 3rd power play and 17th penalty kill. So the Oilers would take that part of it. As far as the mascots go, my son says go with the money. The Kings have the prestige. The Oilers have the money. So he's going with the Oilers as far as mascots go. But let's start with Russ. Why don't you start on this one?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because we'll see. I mean, I'm guessing Quick is getting the start, right? And we'll see if he could turn back the clock. He's had some good games this year, some better ones than I would have thought.
Yeah.
The Kings' defense is always going to be respectable, and their top couple lines are really good. You might even go 3 lines deep on them. But Edmonton's improved, and their power play is deadly. And I just think the difference in this series is how many times the Oilers are put on the power play. And I think if it happens a couple times a game, it could really cost the Kings.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Oilers in 5 only because I don't know if Quick can hold up in this series. Now, I like the backup. It's not really an indictment on that. It's just that the Oilers offense gets rolling a little bit in this. I think it could be a long series for the Kings.
Yeah, that's a good one. Kev, why don't you go second?
Yeah. I think this is going to be one of the interesting series just because I love the novelty of the goaltending matchup. A 36-year-old goalie against a 40-year-old goalie. I think that's going to be fun to watch there. With regard to penalty killing too, did not the Bruins win the cup with the worst power play? The worst power play in the league. I think they traded for Caberly at the end, but it really didn't help them.
Right. That's right. They did.
Yeah. So I think you can win without a good power play. But I started watching the Oilers when a couple of guys in the press box told me that they had seen them a few times and they'd really playing well for 20 games. And they, Mike Smith down the stretch in his last 9 games won all 9. Didn't give up. It was 2 or fewer goals in 8 of the starts. He's really on the top of his game. He's playing well.
Yeah.
Quick has come to get together again. So wouldn't it be fun if this ends up being a goaltending series? Just because the guys are hot, not that they're still premium goalies. But and I like this series too because Draisaitl's only played 21 playoff games. Connor McDavid's played 29. That's ridiculous, given how good these two players that the Oilers have not been able to surround them with talent. So I'm glad they're in there. But I just don't think the Kings are there yet. And this is an Oilers series in 5.
There you go. All right, Mike.
I would give the Kings more of a chance in this series if Drew Doughty was healthy. But he's not. And they got back Mikey Anderson late in the season, so that helps their defense a lot. Edmonton's clearly favored here. LA is a team that nobody expected to make the playoffs. The one thing that I'm intrigued by is the matchup of Kopitar, who's won a Selke and is one of the best defensive forwards in the league, and Danault, who shut down Austin Matthews last year against Toronto and also shut down Scheifele against Winnipeg and got to the Cup final. Those two against McDavid and Draisaitl. They could neutralize them, and LA can play a game that will frustrate Edmonton. And the one thing I'm worried about, again, and I know I keep harping on the goaltenders and their health, Mike Smith is 6,000 years old. If they have to go to Mikko Koskinen, they are screwed. But I think they'll be able to get through the Kings. So I had Edmonton in 7.
In 7, okay. This is a fun series, and I think it's going to be way closer than people thought. I think even because that's just watching Mike Quick down the stretch. I watched Mike Quick. I always call him Mike Quick. Sorry, Jonathan Quick. Mike Quick, not a good goalie, good receiver, but not a good goalie.
Right.
Jonathan Quick, much faster in net, much better hands even. So Jonathan Quick, watching him down the stretch, I watched the last 5 or 6 Kings games because I was just curious as to what they were about, and I was really the real fountain of youth, Jonathan Quick and Stamkos both showed at the end of the year when the two of them were just these guys were playing at the best, at the top of their game. On 2 guys who were kind of written off a little bit, Stamkos, was he even going to keep? Did we even think he'd still be playing by now? With all the injuries,
I don't know if Stamkos was written off. I think Quick was written off, but I don't think Stamkos.
When my memory of Stamkos, take Stamkos from in the bubble, Stamkos, where he gets in the one game or whatever because but and then can't play again because he gets hurt in the goal celebration. Or whatever. It's
come back though. Honestly,
it's an off and on thing. When Kucherov is hurt, Stamkos is healthy. When Stamkos is hurt, Kucherov is healthy. So
but Stamkos had so many injuries through the last 5 or 10 years of his career feels like. But the fountain of youth that the Stamkos and Quick have shown, Quick is as good as he's ever been right now, and it's crazy to watch. I love watching Quick. He's one of my favorite goalies. He's the closest thing to Mike Richter that we have in the NHL. Like Mike Richter is one of my favorite goalies to watch. Quick and Mike Richter, same exact style. So much fun to watch. Both incredible splits. This is a trap for the Oilers. The thing the Oilers don't want is to be the team that everybody says they have the easiest first round matchup. If we've seen nothing in hockey, we've seen that this is a problem. Like, when you're told you should definitely beat a team, and the Oilers on top of it. I mean, this feels like a trap. And, as I think this is the Kings in 7, and Oilers fans are going to kill me for it. And I want to see the Oilers go on. I want to see McDavid and Draisaitl go on. I love this Oilers team. I've defended the Oilers team over and over again.
If they lose to the Kings, somebody's getting fired.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. But I actually think this coach has been amazing with them. I think that everything. I love this Edmonton team. This is the best Edmonton team we've seen in the playoffs. Just like this is the best Leafs team we've seen.
Don't go too deep back. I'm telling you, you went from the shallow part of the pool. You're going deep now. Don't go too deep.
There's something about the hockey gods telling me this is the Kings thing. I don't know. Anyway,
the hockey gods are lying to you.
We'll see. Moving on to the final series here.
That's starting tonight.
Yeah, we're gonna do the other 4 tomorrow. Maybe we can get you tomorrow, Kevin, instead of Wednesday. We'll talk about that. We'll figure it all out. But or if not, we'll figure out something else out. We'll get Kevin's picks for sure. But let's talk about the final one tonight. Minnesota, St. Louis. This is as you know, matchups. We'll just do matchups real fast. Matchups wise, this has been all the Blues, as Mike pointed out earlier. Although the last 2 games have gone to overtime. The Blues, they've been tight games, and 8 of the last 9 the Blues have won. But 5 of those 8 went to overtime. So these are not like blowouts by the Blues. The Blues are beating Minnesota, but they're not blowing them out traditionally. There have been a couple of blowouts in there, by the way. But mostly it's close. Power play wise, the Blues have it all over the Wild. The Blues are second in the power play, 5th in the penalty kill, where Minnesota's 18th in the power play and 25th in the penalty kill. Blues special teams are fantastic, just fantastic. 2 and 5. That might be as low as anybody in the playoffs for both of those. As my son said, he doesn't know many blues singers that would last more than a day in the wilderness. So he thinks that the Wild have the advantage over the Blues in that way, as far as that goes. But Kevin, why don't you start us off?
So far, your son's predictions have been far more interesting than anything.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
I'll tell him that. I'll pass that along.
I said that. I'm going with Minnesota, for the flurry factor. So I hope they don't screw me and play the other goalie. But I guess it could go either way. But most everyone is predicting they'll use flurry. They haven't said the day, have they?
Well, today officially we did skate out into the starter spot on the warm up.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily, but the coach then Everson came out and said there's no decision been made.
One of my favorite things about the starters net was one year when Mike Babcock said, I didn't even know what the starters net was until I started reading it in you guys' thing. He says, honestly, I'm telling you the truth. He said, I didn't even know that was a thing. He says, but I kept, looking at it, and you'd say, well, he was in the starters net. Well,
that says a lot, Kev.
Like he said, it tells you that he didn't send the guy there. It's the goalies that are doing it. So I mean, I think this is going to be a great series. These are the number 3 and the number 5 offensive teams in the league. The Blues are at 3.77, and I think the Wild are at 3.72. So it's really close. They scored a lot of goals, and they won't score that many in the postseason, but they both have the ability to come from behind, which I think is important. And all these series have had goals in them. They've been, you needed at least 4 to win, I think, in all 3 of the Blues wins. They've all been close. So I think this is going to be competitive. They're both heavy teams. They're both big teams. They both are physical. They know how to use those assets effectively. I think the Wild are with Boldy, moving in there and playing well, I think that adds another element, and I think Fleury adds another element. So, that's why I think I'm going with Minnesota.
I have to say this, and I know Ross didn't really want to talk about this too much, but I think this series and Tampa, Toronto, and the losers of those two series at the next Board of Governors meeting or GM's meeting or whatever, I would think that these teams, amongst a number of other ones, will lobby for a 1-8 conference playoff format, because the fact that Toronto or Tampa or St. Louis or Minnesota are going to lose in the first round and have to go head to head is absolutely friggin' ridiculous. And I think there's, John Shannon did a poll, and I know it's fans, but I think fans speak to what the desire and what should be talked about. I think it was 80% said go back to the 1-8 conference format, because it's just unfair. It's really, you go through an 82 game regular season. It's just unfair.
Well, that, I just hope at the Board of Governors meeting that they hand out crying towels.
Oh,
I think that would be a good way to start it. And TV ratings are what matters here. Like I told Mike offline, if you had Nashville, Dallas, you wouldn't be having that many viewers watching that game. You'd have some.
Right.
But they're across the board are going to get way better viewership on this. And you know what? You might say that it declines as it goes on, as good teams lose, but as long as there's some good teams in there, it doesn't decline. And I think
bull crap. Because honestly, Russ, if the Rangers make a run, and the Rangers are in a fortuitous situation with playing Pittsburgh without their number one goaltender. But if the Rangers make a long run, or if Toronto makes a long run, the ratings will be better. If Toronto exits or New York exits in the first round, then it hurts ratings. So I think
you would think that, but it depends who's in it. If I think Kings stay in it. The Kings are a big market. Like I'm just saying,
but I think the ratings are sort of inconsequential. Not inconsequential.
No, it's not inconsequential. No way.
No, but I'm saying you can't focus on that when you're determining fairness in a playoff scenario. And I think also, you're probably going to talk about expanded playoffs later on.
But what is fairness? Like,
come on,
no, Mike, hold on. Fairness goes year to year. It does. Fairness. There's no way you could look at this and say because of this year it should change because of the way these teams.
No, I've been saying this for 4 or 5 ever since they went to the divisional format, which is asinine. I've been saying they should go back to the conference format. It should never have been changed in the first place. It was put in to develop rivalries. Okay, great. You're playing teams in your division 4 times, and you're playing teams in the other division 3 times. Oh boy, that 4th game is really meaningful.
Well, all right, I challenge you. Tell me a bad matchup in these playoffs right now.
I just told you 2 of them. St. Louis, Minnesota, and Toronto, Tampa are 2 bad matchups. Now,
those are bad matchups?
Yeah, you're no matter what you do, you run the risk always of having unfair matchups based on who got hurt and because what happens sometimes, and we've seen it before. Like suppose this year it could have been the Vegas Golden Knights that had all those kinds of injuries, but suppose we were in a conference format and they would have snuck in at 8, it would have been the same thing.
Yeah.
So you don't really know. And the other thing is it's not the Board of Governors. In this case, it would be the general managers. The Board of Governors would have to do it, but it would be the general managers who need to go and call it on. And the fact that we haven't had it yet says the general managers aren't, weary of it. So
my quick prediction on Minnesota St. Louis, the thing that fascinates me for both teams is the goaltending situation, because if they start Fleury, that makes sense. They traded a first-round pick to get him. Ville Husso, who's played more down the stretch than Binnington, I'm assuming he is the starter in game 1. Yeah, so it's going to be a Grubauer situation where, if Husso does well, then he'll keep the job. And if he loses the first game or the first 2 games, then they probably go to Binnington. I just think, Minnesota is a 800-pound gorilla. And I know that St. Louis is really balanced scoring and is really good offensively. I just think that Minnesota is a team with a purpose. So I picked Minnesota in this series. I think I picked them in 6. Let me just double check. I picked Minnesota in 7, so I'll stick with that.
Okay.
All right.
Russ.
I would say this. Right now, knowing Craig Berube, he's always at his best when he's 100% certain about his goaltending. The year they won the cup, he was 100% certain about Binnington.
It's a really good
point. Nowhere close to 100% certain on either one of his goalies right now. And that's when he tends to make mistakes as far as when he's pulling them, so Berube, I think, will have a short hook, even if Husso isn't playing that bad, simply because there'll be that nervousness there. Fleury is the answer, I think, for the Wild, because it really is the only thing that you can point to that you could say, all right, maybe it's not that good. I think everybody underrates Minnesota. And look, St. Louis is a very good team. They score a lot. Their defense is good, although it's not as good as it's been in the past. And their goaltending is not as good as it's been in the past. I think the Wild are going to win this in 5 because I think if you put the Wild on the power play, they kill you on the power play.
But well, historically, that's the Blues are second best power play in the league, Russ. I mean, they're
okay.
killing it.
I'll take the guys they have. I know Zuccarello's a little banged up, but I'll take the guys on the Minnesota power play instead.
Yeah, I mean so this is a great series, and I yes, you will have this problem. You will have those complainers, but to me, the 2 series I'm going to watch mostly, if I can, are Toronto, Tampa in this series, right? Because they're just going to be as a person without a dog, without a horse in this, they're going to be the best. They're going to be the best series out there. These are 210 plus point, the 410 plus teams, right? I mean, you're looking at Sirius or somewhere around there. That never happens, These could easily be conference final games, no question about it. No one would complain if these were the conference finals. That's how good these teams are. It's really now the Blues goaltending situation is fascinating because Talbot has been so good. Like he is since March 13th 13-0-3, right?
You said St. Louis, so you mean Husso or do you mean Minnesota?
I'm sorry, Talbot. I'm talking about Talbot.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm talking Minnesota. I apologize.
Okay.
The Minnesota goaltending. Talbot has been so good. Like he's 13-0-3, 2.35 goals against average, and 9.17 since March 3rd. Since the deadline, he's 8-0-3. But here's the big thing. Here's why I think Fleury is getting the start tonight. Besides the fact that St. Louis, that Minnesota has had their issues with goaltending in the playoffs before, Talbot has been terrible against the Blues this year. Like 0-1-2 with a 5.93 goals against average, 8.14 save percentage, and a minus 9.12 GSA. That's Talbot against the Blues. That's why you got to go with Fleury to start the series. I mean, it's hard to argue with that, right? I mean, that's like,
yeah.
At the end of the day.
And Jeremy Rutherford just tweeted out about 2 minutes ago, Husso is confirmed as the starter for game 1.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's like those numbers are terrifying to the Minnesota Wild. To put him and that doesn't mean that we couldn't see Talbot. And I think we could see all 4 goalies in this series very easily. I
think you have to go 3 games until you see Talbot, though, because otherwise, if you pull Fleury after the second game, you're not going back to him.
I think Kevin brought up one of the more fascinating things about Fleury last week when we were talking on the podcast or off the air or something like that. But I think it was really nailed and it hit home to me how good he is as part of your transition game, like as far as his puck handling abilities.
Yes, the stick works great.
Fleury, and remember he comes from the Pittsburgh Penguins team and the Vegas Knights teams, 2 great transitional teams that get the puck up the ice really fast. He's going to help the Wild out a lot on that, and that's going to be big against this Blues team. Some people think they're better than the Stanley Cup Blues team.
No, I don't think so.
It's hard to say. Like, you don't think so?
I mean, goaltending's not as solid as it was the year that they won the Cup. That's the reason I don't think so.
And they don't. If we're talking about the Blues, they don't have Alex Pietrangelo, so they're not as good.
That's a big factor too.
I mean,
they don't have that, but they have a healthier and hotter Tarasenko. They've got players scoring all over the place. They're
Well, I mean, I like. Okay, they did a pretty decent job filling the hole left by Pietrangelo by bringing in Krug, by keeping Falk, by having Parayko. But they're not the same defense. Now they have incredible balanced scoring. I love Kyrou. I love Thomas. Yeah. Shen. They have a lot of offensive weapons. But Minnesota is just a team that looks like a bulldozer. Now the only thing that might be a factor is Foligno got hurt late in the year. We don't know what his availability, if he's going to play or not going to play. I haven't heard anything, but he's a big part of that team in terms of the physicality that they bring. But if not, guys like Greenway are going to step. They're just a tough, big, fast, aggressive team. And Fleury is on they're scary. So
yeah, I mean, if that's the thing, and Fleury is just such a big game, and he's also the thing about Fleury is also, I don't know if you guys saw the interview with the Sabres guy, oh gosh, the guy who came for Eichel from Vegas,
Alex Tuck.
Yeah, did you hear what he said the other night yesterday? So he's interviewed. He said, "Who do you credit with your career?" He said, "The guy that taught me professionalism in hockey, no questions asked, how to be every day, how to be every minute of my life when I played the sport, was Marc-Andre Fleury." He just said it flat out. Like he came to, I mean, that the respect Fleury has, and Fleury's not going to be a problem. If Fleury doesn't play, if Fleury's not the starter, he's not a problem, which is enormous. I mean, that's like an enormous thing.
He'll be the biggest cheerleader for Talbot if
and Talbot apparently has also been very positive to Fleury too. It's been a great relationship.
Talbot's never going to be a problem.
No,
and those two are such a 1-2 punch.
He did it in Pittsburgh for Matt Murray. He did it in Vegas for Robin Leonard. I don't think you're going to have Marc-Andre Fleury in a corner pouting because they had to pull him. He's a professional, and that's.
I just think that the Blues. I think if you're Everson, you're sitting there and saying the Blues feel like they can beat Cam Talbot. They have confidence against scoring against Talbot. Obviously, they scored almost 6 goals a game against him, right? In 4 games. I think they know they can. They know, but they don't. But Fleury is intimidating. You throw Fleury out there, he's just intimidating.
So what's your prediction?
My prediction is Minnesota in 7.
Okay.
But I think it could be 6. It's a good one. It's a good one for sure.
Okay, we have to talk about some of the news.
Let's get into some of the news real quick.
Now, the news came out regarding Winnipeg, and I would try to get Pete Tessier on the show in the next few days if he's available. But Cheveldayoff was extended for 3 years in Winnipeg. Now, Russ, did they release Lowry and the coaching staff?
They said they were going to, or somebody said they were.
Yeah,
going
that was out there that they had.
I mean, look, I don't think anybody should be surprised that Cheveldayoff got this extension. He lived through the problem that they had. Mark Chipman backed him 100%. Once he backed him 100% in that, you knew that Cheveldayoff wasn't going anywhere.
Now, the thing that, the comments that Scheifele came out with, I mean, let's just say this. I would be dumbfounded that there isn't some sort of massive player movement with the Jets. They disappointed this year. I thought that they were going to be, a playoff team. They didn't get a great year out of Hellebuck. Wheeler is starting to decline, and he's I think 35 years old. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a need for a shakeup there, Kev, and there's enough teams out there that are looking to make a shakeup that they might be able to do something that would be beneficial to that team.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I had the impression that Scheifele was one of the issues there when Maurice left. So, I mean, and there's so many teams that are looking for big forwards up front that if they want to make a move, I think they can do that. And, there are teams that would love to have Scheifele figuring, whatever his issue is, we can resolve here. So it's going to be interesting. I'm still surprised, even though I know his relationship with ownership there is strong. I'm talking about Cheveldayoff, though, that he just hasn't paid any price at all for the fact that they've, really haven't progressed. And I'm actually surprised at that. I actually thought he was, once he got his opportunity in Winnipeg, I thought they were going to be a force. I thought he did a good job as assistant GM. He did a good job in the AHL. So I'm surprised he really haven't made any progress there.
And
very conservative GM, I think, Kevin. Like, I think he's been very slow to make moves, and been very much measured. But he's also, as you know from talking to him in the past, like he's a very personable character. And if the owner likes him, the owner likes him. Like sometimes the owner wants his GM to be somebody he's really comfortable with. That more than anything else,
But when
there's a comfort level there, I think that's kind of what I get out of this.
But when he makes a move, he makes a move. He makes Dubois for Laine. You know what I'm saying?
He makes a solid. He will make moves, but he was forced into that to a degree, though. It's like Laine had to be moved. It's just like
and now
better of the move though.
Right, but now they face the same problem that they face with Laine. Dubois is an RFA. They've got to re-sign him. And I think he's got 1 year left. And after that, if he's like a year away from free agency, they have to find out whether he wants to stay there or not.
And that's the biggest thing. You know what the biggest problem that the Winnipeg Jets face is the actual place that they're in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
Because not everybody wants to play there. And that's where we have to give Cheveldayoff credit, even though he hasn't paid a price, and I agree with Kevin. I have to give him credit for the amount of guys that he's been able to bring in with term to kind of keep the team going. Because if you had to just depend on going out and getting free agents for Winnipeg,
yeah,
you're in a lot worse shape.
Or extending Hullebuck,
Right.
Ehlers, Connor. Like he got them extended. He got some safety. But now
there's issues playing there. I mean, that's the reality.
I'm curious what direction they're going to go for head coach. Now, in Vancouver, there's talk about Boudreau signing a long-term extension, but nothing is locked up. I would think that would be something that
he wants 5 years. I heard he wants 5 years, and
that's nuts. I mean,
that's nuts.
maybe 3 years. I don't know about 5. Kev Blashill over the weekend, they announced he's gone.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You start.
Well, yeah, I think this. We don't, as I've talked about before. Yzerman plays everything close to the vest, but there's a sense that we have that Yzerman is just as angry with the players as he is with Blashill, and I think his response will be he'll bring in a demanding coach.
Right.
Because I think he wants high accountability. He wants people's feet held to the fire because he really didn't like they had too much give up in them in the final 2 months of the season. They didn't respond well to adversity, and he was shocked by the embarrassing losses that the team took. And, as I wrote, style points we always say don't matter. It's all wins and losses, but they do matter in terms of picking a coach and the sustainability of a coach. If the coach is not getting a lot out of his players, he goes beyond the wins and losses. I think if this is my take, if they could have had the same win and loss record and Blashill could have kept his job if games were hard fought all the time, but they weren't, and I think that's why he lost his job.
Now, not surprisingly, I mean, everybody believes that for the next coach, Yzerman's going to go with somebody who had some connection to him back with Tampa Bay. My guess was Benoit Gruel, who was the AHL coach of the year a few years ago and coached the Syracuse Crunch to a Calder Cup, I believe. Yeah, and he was Syracuse was the AHL affiliate of Tampa. Jeff Merrick mentioned on the air about an hour ago the name of Derek Lalonde, who's the assistant coach in Tampa to John Cooper.
Yeah, that's who I have on my list is Lalonde. Yzerman hired him. He came up the same way Cooper and Blashill did.
Okay.
If you look at Yzerman's history, he's hired only 2 coaches, and they were both modern communication guys, Guy Boucher and Cooper. He has taken guys who have not been proven, but we have had one person who knows Yzerman well who thinks he might go with experience this time. Okay. And that he wants somebody who's tough. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think, Yzerman's one of those people who tries to have an open mind in the interview process. I think you can go in, and if he feels a connection with you, because I think that's important because he's heavily involved in his teams. So
interesting.
Now, Russ, the Philadelphia situation. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. We just know
there's
something
going to be changes, but we don't know. Like, even if we forget about Bruce Boudreau, there are 10 coaches' jobs out there. So, like potentially. So, that's a lot for the Flyers to have to compete with, and they're going to compete with them, but they're going to lose to a lot of them. Like they're no longer like that place that everybody wants to go to. And so
unless they're proactive and move quickly.
Yeah. If they get one of the guys that's out there now that's not tied up with somebody, maybe that is so. And, if that's Torts, then sorry, Ek, but then that's Torts. But I again, they're in a tough spot. They're in a tough spot. I didn't hold anything against Provorov for what he said on the exit interviews. Guys were frustrated this year. He was one of them. He finished the year strong. So, again, I don't see how you'd be able to get rid of him in a trade, not knowing if Ryan Ellis is going to make it back by training camp, even though he says he is, and not knowing what your top pairing would be at that point. So I don't think you could do that. It's a big transitional year for the Flyers. I think it's too much for a team to have to do in one off season.
And the other one that's
Well,
popping.
let me weigh in on that because I have
Sorry,
some insight on that too. I've talked to people down there. There is a bit of a push, I think, for Briere to get more of a role,
Right.
But I don't personally don't think he's ready to be a GM. I mean, he could be, but and I talked to somebody at TSN who really thinks he is yesterday, but I don't. I mean, I know Danny really well. He learns everything. He's a very good student. He really trusts people.
He really
likes but so the Flyers coaching job is I think inherently tied to the general manager position, and I think that if Fletcher is retained, which indications are he will be, but I don't think Comcast has really had its final come to Jesus moment yet on that.
But
they could in the next couple of days. We don't know.
They will.
The current model out there. I mean, we saw it in Montreal with Gorton, who is the general manager, but he's the president, and Kent Hughes, who is technically GM by name only, but he's I think a glorified assistant. It may change over the Briere could be named the GM and Fletcher be elevated. So I
don't think the two of them are meant to work together, but I think that they are. I mean, I think that they could. But I think if they change the GM, I really do think that Rick Tocchet would take a job here. But I'm not sure that Tocchet would take a job here as a coach with Fletcher as a GM. So that's that's not anything I've been told directly, but kind of indirectly.
Yeah.
So that's the feeling around the team that Tocchet is.
Let me ask Kevin this. Kev, you covered the Red Wings. You saw the battle that they had just to get to the point where they are now. Don't you think this Flyers whole off season is a lot?
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard to change over a team. It's and to do it when you've got contracts already dedicated and they're locked in with all these contracts that are difficult to move. So it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do. But there's enough there that you can entertain the idea of trying to make 3 or 4 changes and be better. So
yeah, they have a lot of options to move. They have a lot of young players that people covet too. They've got
that doesn't help them. They need to get rid of the players that they don't covet.
Right. No, I know, but they've got prospects out there that they could add to help get rid of players that they don't. And there's things they could do that if they went. And then I'm not saying that's the way I would go.
They're ready. If you believe they're ready, yeah.
Right. I'm not saying that's the way they'll go.
We'll
get into them for sure. We'll move on to also. We have to talk about the Devils for a second too.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go next.
The Devils, I've heard from sources there are like 50-50 on Lindy Ruff right now. Still, that decisions today and tomorrow could be made.
If it was me, I would. I mean, nothing against Lindy, but I look at that team and I look where they're going, and knowing Lindy Ruff for all the years in Buffalo, he's not a developmental coach. He is a guy. I think he's better with a team with veterans. I think we saw that in Dallas. I think we saw that to a lesser extent in Buffalo. And I was puzzled by the hiring in the first place a few years ago.
He's a really smart coach, though, Mike. He's like a really smart.
But he's a smart coach, and you can't dispute his record. But what I'm saying is he's a fit for a team that is right on the precipice of winning a cup. He's a good veteran coach.
Yeah, historically, I agree with you. But at the same time, you cannot say that he's done a pretty good job developing some young players.
I don't think so at all.
He's done
in New Jersey, some of these young players have developed pretty well.
And Jack Hughes backed him today, and backed him really in a good way. Not like, hey, he's just a coach.
Yeah.
And Jesper Bratt did improve. He did a lot. And
Jack, I go back to Ralph Kruger. What does that mean?
No, but you know what, Mike? I get it. I was the last time Lindy was out there, I was like, I didn't like the direction he was going in either. But Eck makes a point. He has developed some guys here. Your best player, your future franchise guy, is backing him. That's what makes it a tougher decision.
And New Jersey believes that if they had goaltending, they would have been a playoff team.
I think they could have been.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they believe. So it's like at the end of the day, Kev, what are your thoughts?
Well, to be honest with you, I thought they would actually get rid of him because he doesn't seem like a good fit for that team. I think you need kind of a modern guy for that team because of their offensive guys. Lindy has a little Joel Quenneville in him. Once he decides on a player, it's hard to get out of his doghouse. So I think you need with that team, you need a little bit more open-mindedness. But, I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but I thought Mike was right on when he said, just depends on where you are in your development. Like if you really thought you need to, turn the corner and get to the next thing, I'd want Lindy Ruff because he's been there. He knows how to do it. But I don't know. I think there are probably better guys to handle this young group of players they're going to have coming.
Now, we don't know how many coaching vacancies are going to be out there at when it's all said and done. But, Kev, this is the question I have. The radioactive coaches, Quenneville, Babcock. I don't think anybody's hearing Bill Peters. But
I don't think Babcock, I think, is going to have a hard time getting a job. And I don't think Quenneville can because I think he's still under suspension, if I understand correctly. So I don't think anybody would hire him. I don't know who else you consider on that radioactive list.
Bill Peters, maybe.
Yeah, no, he would not get a job. But, like Tortorella is going to get a job.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Paul Maurice may get a job if he wants to coach again. I mean,
maybe Elaine Vigneault gets a job. He's
Elaine Vigneault.
I think Quinn will get a job too. I think
Bob Hartley, Quinn.
I like Quinn a lot. I think Quinn's a guy the Flyers have looked at too.
Well, they all can't get jobs. We're not going to have that many spots, so some of them are not going to get.
There could be as many as 10. I don't know if it's.
I saw it written. There could be as many. There's 10 contracts up, but there's decisions to be made, like with Ruff, Boudreaux. There's probably 3 or 4 that are just like that.
Yeah.
I guess they're counting Mike Yeo in that group, right?
Jared Bednar he's a free agent at the end of this year. So the question is whether if Colorado loses in the first round in Nashville, then he might be in trouble. But I don't think that's going to happen.
This question from the chat room: is there any chance that Ruff no longer is Devils head coach for an amazing organization in another position? I'd say yes.
Yeah,
I've heard the ownership really likes him.
Yeah, he's a wise guy. I mean, he knows a lot of hockey.
I've heard the same thing about him after coaching in Buffalo.
For sure.
Somebody's like a senior advisor.
Yeah, he's good, really a good guy actually.
Yes.
Yeah, and
he
smart guy to have around.
He lives here, so
he's a smart guy to have around. And it's just like this, this. But that's So we got a lot, and we're plenty more to talk about tomorrow and the next day and all that stuff. This is fun. Like I said, this is my favorite 2 weeks of the season. I was just talking about before that we were on the show. Like when I did as a kid, when I used to, I had a VCR, and I would set up a VCR and I would tape every overtime of the playoffs. So when it went into overtime, I would hit record, and then I would have like a 2 and some games would go 3 overtime, some would go 10 minutes. But I would have this whole thing that I could watch in the middle of the summer when I missed hockey. Just watching playoff overtime is such a treat. It's such a wonderful thing. There's nothing like it in the world. I think there's no better 2 weeks in all of sports, and I'll argue that against anything, than what we have coming up starting tonight. So just enjoy it. Sit back and enjoy it. If your team's in it, you'll be stressed out of your mind. If your team's not in it, just enjoy it. It's all fun. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you all tomorrow.